Hello, everyone. I am Shaurya Thapa of Borrowing Tape, and greetings to our listeners on planet Earth. I say that because today I'm joined with Jess Varley, the writer and director of the space drama The Astronaut. Welcome, Jess. How are you feeling today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I'm on planet Earth. No motion sickness. Not an astronaut. I could never be one. But that's great to hear, Jess. Before I get into the details, your film features Kate Mara as an astronaut who crash lands back to Earth and is then put under a very strict, very mysterious quarantine. My first question to you is: how did your fascination with space and space travel begin? Did you ever want to be an astronaut yourself, like many people in their childhood?
Totally. Well, it's so funny because as a kid, I remember seeing all those commercials for space camp, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever." I did not go to space camp, but so I think I'm just fulfilling that wish as an adult now. But it's so funny because I grew up in Brooklyn, and my dad and I used to climb up his fire escape on his building with this little telescope, and we would put a blanket out, and we would try to stargaze in Brooklyn, which is kind of difficult to do because there's quite a lot of light pollution, but, um, he always had a fascination for it, and I'd love when we would go camping and you could really see the stars and just really ponder what's out there, so I feel like it's obviously a pretty human fascination, but in terms of going to space, I used to wanna do it as a kid, but honestly, I think I'd be way too scared now. I'm happy to keep my feet on on the ground.
I mean, your film itself builds that tension because like while I was watching it, that was my thought as well that, oh, this is the reason why I would not be interested in space travel. There's so much testing, so much training to be done. And even in your film, like Kate Mara's character Sam, she faces these hallucinations when she's back from space. So, for example, things are floating around her like she's in zero gravity, even though she's just hallucinating. So, what kind of research went in capturing this post space trauma for your heroine?
Well, I had the great fortune of interviewing, Dr. Elizabeth Warren, who's head of the NASA rehab program, basically. So she oversees all of the rehabilitation for the astronauts when they come back from space. And she was just the nicest person. And she had so much incredible insight to share that tons of it was infused into the script. So she told me about all of these fascinating things that they deal with that you would never know. I also got to interview, a real astronaut, which was so cool. And again, so much of what they told me is in the script. So everything from astronauts really hiding their symptoms is actually a real thing that they do because it is true that if they're deemed too sensitive for space travel, that they often will not be allowed to fly again. So everything from that all the way through the symptoms, all the way through Kate's character, Sam, requesting a cheeseburger when she returns is all something that astronauts like, everyone wants a cheeseburger when they come home because I think that dehydrated space food is, leaves much to be desired. And also just the fact that it's really hard on the families. I think that is obviously something that's in there, but it's sort of like being a military family or a military spouse. Your partner goes out and goes on this really dangerous mission for months at a time, and you don't really know if they're going to make it home or not. So that reality too is also something that I tried to infuse into the story.
And were there any, you mentioned all the facts. Now, coming to the fiction, were there any space or non space films that inspired The Astronaut?
Hmm. Definitely. Okay, I obviously love Arrival. Who doesn't love Arrival? It's absolutely stunning. And then obviously there's the nostalgic ones, E.T. and Close Encounters, and all that kind of stuff. I think, Ridley Scott is also incredible. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of influences in there. And that's why I feel like the film is kind of colorful in terms of its range and its scope is it isn't just kind of one tone and one thing the whole way through. I tried to sort of let it breathe and allow it to be something unexpected, and kind of challenge the genre a little bit so that it didn't get too much like, well, it's a horror movie all the way through, and in the end, she gets torn apart by the aliens and she dies, and then the movie's over. I think there was this longing for kind of the beauty that movies like Arrival and Close Encounters tap into, and E.T., where there's this real kind of sweet connection to space, and the aliens don't have malicious intentions.
Yeah. And what struck to me, like you just mentioned, E.T. and Close Encounters, like talking about Steven Spielberg, there is a scene where, I mean, I'm not giving any spoilers for our listeners, but there's a scene where Sam is hiding from a certain threat, and the way she's hidden stealthily, it reminded me of that classic Jurassic Park scene where these kids are hiding from the raptors in the kitchen. So was that like an intentional homage, or did you notice it after filming that? Oh, this reminds me of Jurassic Park.
Totally. It's funny because it was kind of a bit of both. Like, I think we always imagined it to be this sort of Jurassic Park style scene. But then there was the happenstance of the fact that the location that we were filming at had that kind of industrial kitchen, which was so reminiscent of the film because we didn't have the resources to build a replica kitchen. So the fact that it happened to be actually like the Jurassic Park kitchen to me was so fun, and I was happy to lean into it, even down to post when we were really fine-tuning the way the aliens moved in the space. Like, we were totally trying to lean into that dinosaur, that heaviness and that gravitas that they have. So it sort of always was there, but then by kind of a series of just sort of fortunate events, we kind of just leaned into it. And I feel like it was, I think it's hard because I think people put that movie obviously on such a high pedestal because everyone feels so connected to it in such a personal way from childhood. So it's a little bit of a like almost taboo, I feel like, to reference it in a way. It's not like Tarantino where people are like, "Oh, that's really cool. It's an homage." People are like, "How dare you, Jurassic Park?" Which I totally get. I totally get. But it was so fun. I think it just kind of brought out the kid in me. It's funny because like there's even moments like when she looks over her shoulder, like there are moments that really take me into those movies, but there was never like I didn't like take any shots or anything like that. I think it was just like the energy felt so much like the movie that it just sort of like became what it was.
And you just mentioned the setting of your film, and like the location where you were shooting. So I mean, most of the film takes place not in space, but in a desolate and, dare I say, a very swanky house. Like I love the like how minimalist and stylish that house was. And this is the house where Sam, our heroine, is quarantined and tested. So, what were some of the behind the scenes challenges for you while filming in such a single limited setting?
It's funny, our script supervisor said it was one of the most complicated continuity films because
Mhm.
it's, for the most part, very linear, and it happens in a lot of time sort of in real time for a lot of the movie. Um, and obviously, there's the progression of what's going on with her body also as that's happening. So there was that, but honestly, the location ended up being a massive gift because when we were scouting, we explored every option from building on a stage, which was too expensive, to finding a house that we liked that was by the ocean and the setting didn't work and we were going to have to try to find a forest and then we were going to have to try to stitch them together, and that's difficult when you're moving between spaces and looking out of windows and all these things. So honestly, we were very lucky with that location. Obviously, we painted the house, we totally dressed it, we did all of these things to kind of give it this total makeover, and kind of make it our ex machina house in a way. But honestly, it was so fortuitous. And the fact that you can really see this beautiful kind of autumn forest through the windows of the house and really feel that isolation in an in-camera real way is was actually a huge gift. So and even our subterranean level, in the movie was at a kids science center that was, like, 10 minutes away where our base camp was. We ended up just using that space and playing around with it and kind of repurposing, elements there, so, we really lucked out. But we did a lot of scouting to get there, but, it really was very, very fortuitous.
And where exactly was this house, this location that you're talking about?
It was, in this area called Wicklow, which is about 40 minutes outside of Dublin. So it's really fun. I got
Mhm.
to live in Ireland for, like, 3 months, which was so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Like, so now I know next where, like, if anyone from outer space visits, Ireland would be on their
Yes, yes.
travel list. But
They're like, "Aim for Guinness."
as you just mentioned, the so-called Ex Machina house. Ex Machina itself, to me, when I watched it, compared to when I watched it after COVID,
Yeah.
it turned out to be unexpectedly a very COVID film. Like, these three
Mhm.
people just doing the research and collectively losing their mind. And even in the astronaut, we see Sam being quarantined, being tested, and being like driven to her like mental limits. So, were there any like COVID influences on the story then, or did you feel like that would be a bit too cliche if not done right?
Yeah, it's funny because the movie originally was written at the height of COVID. I think I pitched the concept to Brad Fuller, our lead producer, like, January 2021. So and even at that time, I mean, we were very much in our little COVID bubbles of who we were spending time with or not, was still very much that era. So even having dinner with him to talk about it was, like, a huge leap to be like, "Okay, we're gonna leave the bubble, and we're gonna go to his house," and even that was kind of felt sort of risky at the time, but the movie was originally written to be super, super micro budget, one location, and COVID friendly. Originally, Kate's character, Sam, was the only person in the movie not in a hazmat suit, and everyone that was visiting, her family, everybody was gonna be wearing hazmat suits, and thank God we changed that because, oh boy, the one scene that we have in the movie with people in hazmat suits, it was a nightmare. That was the hardest thing to film because they fog up, they're hard for
Yeah.
sound, like, people get claustrophobic in them, so and I think it would have been just awful for people to have to watch a movie where everyone was in a hazmat suit the entire time. So there were certain things that as kind of COVID era lifted through the long process of developing the movie, we were able to kind of expand the world and pull back on some of those kind of very COVID heavy influences, as we came out of it.
I'm glad like you didn't stick with the hazmat suits because there's so much like family element in this as well. Like as you
Totally.
mentioned, like there's like the military family angle that you mentioned, and for me, some of the scenes that worked was like Gabriel Luna, who plays Kate Mara's husband, and their daughter, them showing up for her. And if they showed up in hazmat suits, yeah, I was like, are they really her family? I don't know. I can't even see beyond the mask.
Oh my god, the
But
little girl in a tiny little hazmat suit, it would've been bizarre.
yeah, and what if the aliens were like, yeah,
Yeah,
but
the
but
aliens wear hazmat suits.
yeah, but like you in this film you get to work with like quite some versatile character actors. You have obviously you have Kate Mara, you have Lawrence Fishburne, you have Gabriel Luna, and Jess, you also are an actor. You have been acting for quite some time in TV shows and films. So how does your acting background help you in directing actors in your own film?
It's honestly so tremendously helpful. I've worked on crews with directors that have 0 acting background and, they're only, like, really good at visual effects or they're only thinking about the cinematography and things like that, but performance is so important. So I think having that shorthand with the actors, obviously these actors are far beyond any level I could have ever dreamed to be, and they're just so highly skilled. So if anything, it's a lot of trying to get out of the way and not kind of overcomplicate things because they're so talented and just kind of letting them do their thing. But I think just having that shorthand and that understanding of like how to just really push it too. I think Kate really, really, really goes there and allows herself to be really messy and become super undone from this very sophisticated, put together professional astronaut that you meet in the beginning. And I think just leaning into the performance of that and the progression of her body transformation and just all of that, I think just that experience that I had in the past, it helped give me the language and the tools to be able to try to support these incredible actors as they moved through the whole range that's in the script.
And you know, coming from your directing work, I mean, to your directing work, you are no stranger to the horror genre because previously you directed segments of the anthology film Phobias. And how different was filming The Astronaut from your past horror work? Because in this film, it's your entire story. It's not even an anthology. So having that free reign.
Phobias was great because it ended up being kind of like film school for me because I went to acting school, but I did not go to film school. So part of my, working on movie crews for years, production coordinating and doing all that was super helpful. But then doing Phobias was so helpful because a lot of my friends on that had already done feature films and I hadn't directed one yet. So it was so amazing to be so up close and personal with my friends, watching them, learning from them, being able to ask questions. It was really informative. But the thing that it didn't prepare me for, which I'm going to even be more mindful of on my next one, is just the intense stamina that's required to fully see out your own, especially when you're writing to write and direct your own feature film. It just takes so much energy. So, like, I got super sick while we were filming. I had a horrible fever. I had bronchitis. I was so sick. But I think, something that I learned was just to really try to stay as healthy as possible. I think that I didn't have to burn the candle as intensely on phobias because it just wasn't as much of an existential time commitment. Whereas, obviously on Astronaut, working on it from the crack of dawn till late at night, all day, every day for years, basically. So it takes so much of yourself. So I think I'll be more mindful next time around about trying to sort of fill up my cup, whether that's like rest or just like even trying to like nourish my body properly. It sounds really basic, but it's like being kind of athletic. I have a friend who's a showrunner and he basically from show running this very successful TV show that he has, he ended up bursting a bunch of discs in his back from standing and being on his feet and being so active all day every day on the set. It's like it's weirdly athletic, even though it doesn't seem like it would be. So I think just the physical preparation is something that I really encourage other, especially first timers, when you're not fully prepared for what that is, like to really, really, really try to be cognizant of how you're physically holding your body and just trying to stay as comfortable and healthy as possible through the process.
Not to romanticize the pain behind filming, but whatever you described, it literally sounds like space training now.
Yeah,
Like astronaut going through so many,
totally,
rounds of physical challenges.
totally.
But yeah, that's all from my side, Jess. Thank you for your time,
Oh, thank you
and
so much. So nice to meet you. This was awesome.
it was lovely. And yeah, I'll keep an eye out for your future works, horror or non-horror. Thank you for your
Yes,
time,
and
Jess.
the next one will be genre, but it'll be genre Christmas movie. So it'll still be the scares, but a little more laughter and a little Christmas message.
Well, I'll keep an eye out for that. Uh,
That'll be
yeah,
hard.
thank you.
Thank you so much. So nice talking to you.
Thank you.